verse 24, Matthew chapter 1, verse 24, then Joseph, being aroused from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord commanded him, and took to him his wife, and he did not know her till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. Now, this is a really interesting passage of Scripture because it says here that he did not know her, and know is a very polite way of talking about the union between a man and a woman. And it says he did not know her till she had brought forth his firstborn son. And he called his name Jesus. Now, Roman Catholics believe that Mary was a perpetual virgin. They believe that Mary did not have any other children and that she remained a virgin for all time. She was, a perpetual virgin. But when you read the Bible, and I think this is a really good reason to reject Roman Catholic tradition, when you read the Bible, it's very clear that Jesus had brothers and sisters. Jesus had many brothers and sisters. We see here in this passage, first of all, he did not know her till she had brought forth her firstborn son. So that implies that afterwards he did have relations with her. But there's a number of passages. I want to just list some of them to you. There's at least 10 verses in the New Testament that talk about Jesus having brothers and sisters. We'll look at a couple of them, but I'll just list them for you. Matthew chapter 12, verse 46 to 47. Matthew chapter 13, verse 55 to 56. Mark chapter 3, verse 31 to 32. Mark chapter 6, verse 3. Luke chapter 8, verse 19 to 20. And John 2, verse 12. John 7, verse 3 to 5. Acts 1 verse 14, 1 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 5, and Galatians chapter 1 verse 19. That's at least 10 verses that say that Jesus had brothers or sisters. Now I want to just look at two of them. The first one is in Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13, verse 54 to 57. How are we going for time? Does anybody have the time? That's good. Good for time. It says this, is this not the carpenter's son, referring to Jesus? Is not his mother called Mary, his brothers James, Joseph, Simon and Judas, and his sisters, are they not all with us? Where then did this man get all this wisdom? You see, according to this passage, Jesus had brothers and sisters. Now, sometimes Roman Catholics will try to argue that, well, they were his cousins. They weren't really his brothers, they were his cousins, they try to argue. But the word in the Greek, the word for brothers there is adelphos, and it always means brother. In fact, the etymology of the word is womb mate. That's the etymology of the word. It's always used to refer to brothers. There's a separate word used for cousins, and it's used in Colossians chapter 4, verse 10, where Barnabas is called the cousin of John Mark. So it's a different word when you want to use the word cousin. So it's very clear Jesus had brothers. The word for cousin in the feminine is also a different word, and it's used to refer to Mary's cousin, cousin Elizabeth, which we read about already. But the word for sister is adelphē, which is the feminine version of it, and it means female from the same womb. That's what the word means. So it's very clear that Jesus had brothers and sisters, literal brothers and sisters. The next passage that's worth looking at is in chapter 12, verse 46 to 47. And I think this is a really good one because not only does it use these same words, but it uses it in a way that cannot refer to cousins. It has to refer to brothers. It says this, while he was still speaking to the multitudes, referring to Jesus obviously, behold, his mother and brothers stood outside, seeking to speak with him. Then one said to him, look, your mother and your brothers are standing outside, seeking to speak with you. Now this is interesting because Jesus goes on and says, but he answered and said to them, but he answered and said to the one who told him, who is my mother and who are my brothers? He stretched out his hand toward his disciples and said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. Now, he obviously is referring to brothers and sisters here because he wouldn't be saying, look, whoever does the will of my Father is my mother and my cousin. It doesn't really make sense, does it? He's obviously talking about, his actual brothers, and he's saying, whoever does the will of my Father is my mother and my brother and my sister, and that's why we as Christians call ourselves brothers and sisters. We don't call each other cousins, right? So it's quite clear that the Roman Catholic view that Mary was a perpetual virgin is wrong. It's wrong. And I think this is important. I know sometimes we think, well, it's not a big deal to talk about the Roman Catholics, but the Roman Catholics have a lot of false doctrine, and they like to appeal to their tradition as being authoritative. And it's really good to have this up your sleeve to be able to say to them, look, your tradition is not infallible, your tradition can be wrong, and here's an example of why it's wrong. The only infallible authoritative source of authority for the Christian is the Word of God.